So I finally watched Look Back. As soon as I finished, I rushed to see what people were saying and saw the praise for the brilliance of its sound design, how so much of the story is Fujimoto Tatsuki, its creator, injecting his own life and experiences as an artist, about its connection with the arson attack at Kyoto Animation. But I'm obsessed with seeing characters like they're people. And I was rather disappointed there wasn't more about Fujino and Kyomoto themselves. I know Fujino, Kyomoto, that they're the story's creator condensed into two characters has been rehashed to death, but I can't help seeing them as if they weren't. As if they were just two young girls who couldn't be any different, but through their unexpected friendship were inspired to pursue their dreams. It was all very uplifting, of course, until it wasn't. So, of course, I took a ton of notes and my thoughts wandered. What if, in every meaningful relationship, there's an event horizon? A point where, no matter how much that relationship has inspired us and been our everything, further pursuing that dream means doing it alone. And once we cross that point, all that's left is deciding whether to look back with resentment or acceptance. Now, Fujino and Kyomoto's artistic abilities develop in contrast to each other, illustrating something psychologists call social identity theory, which is defining ourselves in relation to the groups in which we belong, or in this case, to another artist. Fujino creates characters without worlds. Kyomoto builds worlds without characters. The literal negative space in their art, what each leaves out, becomes what the other provides. It's no coincidence that they then become friends, because their art, like their identities, complement each other. First, Fujino's the character Fujimoto relates to most, and I can see why. Anyone ambitious can probably sympathize with the emotional roller coaster she goes on, from the crest of praise where everyone says she could become a professional artist to the plunge of, next to Kyomoto's drawings, yours look pretty average. At the height of her praise, the classroom is filled with the voices of classmates laughing at the panels, requesting her autograph, and running her mouth. Oh, I was so busy this week, so I did it in 5 minutes. School is her safe space. So much so that when her teacher approaches her about giving half her panels to the shut-in class over, she shrugs it off as nothing. With an air of superiority, Fujino declares she's unsure if drawing decent art is possible for a wimp who can't even come to school. Then the next week comes, and Fujino is devastated by the overwhelming curiosity and praise for Kyomoto. Sure, Kyomoto's panels lack any people, but her scenery tells a story without them. Not to mention, her skill is better than what the average adult might struggle to draw. All the comparisons, which Fujino can't reason away with the evidence right in her hands, make the compliments she's received thus far seem worthless. One thing undeniable about Fujino is she's competitive. She's great at sports, bold and outgoing, so Kyomoto's appearance feels like a challenge. Season after season, Fujino proceeds to research how to improve, studying anatomy and filling stacks of notebooks with crude drawings that always fall short of Kyomoto's details. She pulls far away from everyone, putting her all into drawing, but the compliments pull away from her too. Her friends say now they're about to enter middle school, isn't she getting too old for drawing? She doesn't hang out with anyone, doesn't participate in sports, and her test scores have tanked. Even so, Kyomoto's drawings are always better. She's tried so hard and yet still can't win. She gives up on drawing manga, eats ice cream with friends, watches TV with family, and tosses out her stack of notebooks. Well, Fujino gets this thrown back in her face when she brings her elementary school diploma to Kyomoto. After all, she's technically the only person in their entire school outside of maybe Kyomoto's homeroom teacher who probably has any connection to her. And inside Kyomoto's house, Fujino finds those same notebooks. Hundreds of them. Of course Kyomoto was better. She's worked harder. This is another thing you need to know about Fujino to really understand her. She's extremely logic-minded, or at least that's how she presents herself. There's a spark of understanding when she sees the notebooks. This makes it easier for her to swallow why Kyomoto has always been the superior artist, and this spark is what allows her to pick up the empty panels and draw the strip that gets Kyomoto out of her room. Accident or not, Fujino effectively communicates with others through her art, which is something in daily life Fujino sucks at. On the surface, she's incredibly straightforward and confident, but she struggles to express herself when she feels complex emotions that might make her appear weak. For example, when she realizes her rivalry with Kyomoto was entirely one-sided. Instead of meeting Kyomoto's admiration for her stories with compliments for the other girl's scenery work, or the truth of why she stopped drawing, she lies she's taking a break to reach the next step up through a manga competition and promises to let Kyomoto read it once she's done. And it would be one thing if Fujino lied and never followed through, and she very well could have done that. She had no obligation to Kyomoto and would probably never have to interact with her again. But the last thing really to know about Fujino is she's stubborn in all the best and worst ways. So this interaction lights a fire in her. In a scene that could have been right out of La La Land or Dancing in the Rain, Fujino prances, splashing water, runs right up to her room soaking wet, and gets to work. What ensues is what seems like Fujino once again pulling away from others, but she's pulling closer to Kyomoto, toward their shared love of drawing. We all construct our artistic voices through comparison, collaboration, and sometimes competition. The spaces between us, what we see in others that we lack in ourselves, often drives us. For Fujino, the empty backgrounds of her panels represent not just artistic limitations, but emotional ones as well. Spaces she couldn't define until Kyomoto showed her how. But we shouldn't forget that Kyomoto isn't just a supporting character in Fujino's story. She escapes that role when she leaves her house to work on their manga. It's rather easy to view her as a passive figure in contrast to Fujino's more outwardly driven personality, but her decision to leave the safety of her room, small as it seems, is a pivotal moment. Developmental psychologists often describe a pattern we all experience. Moving from dependency to independence, and ideally to interdependence. Look Back captures this journey through Kyomoto, or at least it would have, had her journey not been so abruptly cut short. When we first meet Kyomoto, it is through her art. She has an attention to detail and light that makes her drawings breathe, but they lack any living subject. As she later admits, Kyomoto stopped going to school because she was afraid of people, so it's no wonder her art never includes them. Yet the courage it must have taken Kyomoto to step outside her door demonstrates a desire to overcome her current situation. Her outspoken admiration of Fujino's characters and stories shows she knows what her art lacked without needing to conceal her flaws. This directly contrasts to Fujino, who bottles up her weaknesses. This contrast between them is a crucial dynamic to understanding them as characters. Their collaboration isn't only successful in how they balance each other, it's the catalyst that brings Kyomoto out of her isolation and the reason behind her unfortunately painful decision to attend university. This is where the concept of scaffolding comes in, the support that allows someone to reach beyond their current abilities. Through Fujino's influence, Kyomoto found more than just artistic improvement. She found a reason to engage with the world, and yet when we see Kyomoto's empty house, her funeral attended by almost no one, it becomes painfully clear how little support she had in Fujino's absence. Fujino drew her out, first through art and then physically into the world. Kyomoto admits she only started drawing because she had nothing else to do. Her art as a coping mechanism rather than a passion allowed Kyomoto to create a safe world where no people existed. Yet under Fujino's friendship, her art transformed into a shared purpose and identity. Ironically though, effective mentorship ultimately creates independence. As Kyomoto gains confidence and skill, she naturally questions what she needs to continue growing. "I want to try living on my own," she tells Fujino, "without having to rely on you." Unlike how it might sound, this isn't a rejection. Kyomoto is taking Fujino's own advice too literally. "If your drawing skills improve, so will your speed," Fujino had told her. And Kyomoto, ever aspiring to live with the confidence Fujino inspired in her, makes the mature choice to pursue formal education, a decision that demonstrates both her commitment to improving her art and confronting her fear of interacting with others. Really, the most painful thing about Kyomoto's death is everything it ended. Of course, there are the years Kyomoto had yet to live, then the years she'd already spent becoming someone brave enough to overcome her fears, of learning to exist independently from someone she cared about so much. But perhaps most tragically, it ended any chance of reconciliation with Fujino. What remains instead is a blank panel, the space where their future together should have been. Fujino's anger at Kyomoto's departure wasn't only stubbornness. It was the very fear of this loss, as if some part of her sensed the fragility of time. Perhaps this is what creates the alternate timeline where Fujino saves her, forming a protective place where they meet when Fujino is coming back to drawing manga, and Kyomoto has enough experience to support her. Or if everything had played out differently in the original world, Kyomoto could have returned to Fujino with new skills and perspectives. The revolving door of assistants were fast but not dedicated enough to detail. Fujino becoming the shut-in, while Kyomoto ventures out into the world. The emotional and physical toll it took for Shark Kick to succeed. All of this suggests that with Kyomoto, things could have been different. Or at the very least, they could have carried their burdens together. But instead, their friendship crossed an event horizon. That critical point where interactions have stopped and no longer can they help or protect each other, even if they wanted to. Once Kyomoto stepped beyond Fujino's influence to forge her own path, neither could they see that they were entering a point of no return. So by the time Fujino realized what was truly at stake, Kyomoto had already crossed into a space where she could never be saved. Instead, what remained wasn't just distance, but an entirely separate world drawn from all the words left unsaid, taking form in the space between what was and what could have been. Kyomoto's alternative manga strip creates such a space where their paths diverge but ultimately reconnect, where Fujino saved Kyomoto after giving up drawing, while Kyomoto still pursued art school. When they meet in this alternate timeline, Fujino claims she started drawing again, and I like to believe that this is a lie, mostly because Fujino is just stubborn enough to make it become true. This alternative world really gets to the heart of what look back means. The title cleverly echoes Don't Look Back in Anger by Oasis, a song that Fujimoto directly references in the manga. As Noel Gallagher explains, the song, it's about not being upset about the things you might have said or done yesterday. It's about looking forward rather than looking back. The danger of viewing the growth of our loved ones as a betrayal robs us of precious present moments. Art, for one, is created by an artist as a reflection of how they see the world. No matter how hard we try to sympathize, we only have our own eyes to see through. This makes personal development essential for the broader world to benefit. Because of Fujino's stubbornness, it's easy to see where the cracks formed in their relationship, when Kyomoto begged Fujino to believe in her. But Fujino, unable to express herself, discounted Kyomoto's contributions instead. She dismissed Kyomoto's ambitions as impossible, listing the reasons one by one. She's too shy to even talk to a cashier, a degree wouldn't guarantee a job. Finally, when logic failed, Fujino begged in her own way, grasping for the one argument that mattered the most to her. If you stay with me, everything will turn out all right. Kyomoto's simple response, I'll practice. She wasn't asking for reassurance, nor was she trying to be defiant. She was acting on what Fujino herself taught her. By dismissing Kyomoto's aspirations, Fujino ensured that, whether or not she was right, their friendship would end. They lost each other then, and Kyomoto's death meant that they could never get that time back, nor would they ever have any time in the future. Fujino's room reflects this. The empty floor, the space that Kyomoto once occupied, could represent everything she sacrificed in her stubborn pursuit of success. The same goes for Kyomoto's room. Left untouched, a shrine to the past that can't be reclaimed. The preserved sketchbooks, the undisturbed clothing with Fujino's autograph, evidence of a future cut short. Like an event horizon, some moments in our lives become points of no return. As for the film's title, it holds two meanings on how to deal with this moment. In Oasis's Don't Look Back in Anger, it's that dwelling on yesterday's pain only stops us from moving forward. But in Kyomoto's alternative manga, look back takes on another meaning. When translated from Japanese, it could be read as look at my back, echoing one of the last things Fujino ever said to Kyomoto. Keep your eyes on my back and you'll grow too. The irony is that Kyomoto took this advice to heart while Fujino herself couldn't follow it. For years, it's likely Fujino fell into her shut-in life and acted like Kyomoto didn't exist, focusing only on her art and the numbers that reflect her logical understanding of success. After Kyomoto's death, Fujino finally understands why she draws manga, tedious, unglamorous work that it is. She realizes it was never about the art itself, but the joy of creating together. The blank panels she tapes on her window might appear empty, yet it's filled with possibilities for her future and for all of the stories she'll tell for the both of them. If you enjoyed this analysis of Look Back and the pain of growing apart, I'd appreciate it if you checked out one of my other videos. And when you're stuck between creating alone or growing together, ditto. That's why I'm Pickle Ditto. Because whatever storytelling pickle you're in, I've probably been there too.